Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter, or of course you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. We're going to talk about the heavyweight division and OLEKSANDR USYK. Has he given a hint that the Tyson Fury fight will be going ahead? We'll also talk about another comment that he's made with regards to his preparation for a fight against Tyson Fury. Some people feel that it's something that could greatly help him. Other people feel that it's something that could harm him. So we'll get to that in a moment. We'll also talk about Anthony Joshua and his various issues at the moment with trainers again. He seems to be in somewhat of a state of confusion for my money, and we're going to talk about that. But before we do, let's talk about some massive breaking news in sport in general. By now, I'm sure you would have heard the first piece of news, and that is that the Argentinian national team has been crowned the World Cup winners in 2022. Lionel Messi, who many consider to be the greatest footballer of all time, has finally gotten his hands on that elusive World Cup trophy. If you are a football fan, leave a little comment down below and let me know where you rank him in the pantheon of great players. Is he the greatest today, or do you still rate Ronaldo above him? How about the greats of the past? The likes of Puskás, Pele, Maradona, all these other greats of the past. How does he stack up compared to them? But now for the other big breaking news that has really shocked and shaken the world of football. It emerged, breaking news, that after the fight, Lionel Messi had been attacked in the changing room by an unknown assailant. The rumors are that he snuck in, he hit Lionel Messi with a body shot in the ribs, and he screamed, "Viva Mexico, cabrones!" And the Qatari police have released this photo to appeal to the public for information. If you could spot anybody in there that you might consider to be suspicious, please contact the Qatari officials and let them know it is your civic duty to do so. This man must be caught. It's vital for public safety. And if you're not going to do it for your civic duty, then at least do it for them. Moving on from that, let's talk boxing. And let's discuss OLEKSANDR USYK. He's put out an Instagram message to say, "I'm coming." Now, in terms of how I interpret this Instagram message, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to assume he's not saying what the Love Boxing TV boys, John and Kaya, are saying when they're spending time together watching one of Ebony Bridges' weigh-ins. No, I think he's talking about Tyson Fury and coming for those undisputed titles. This comes just a couple of days after Boxing Social reported that OLEKSANDR USYK said he will be getting advice from the Klitschko brothers regarding his fight against Tyson Fury. Now, a lot of people have been very critical of this. I've seen a lot of people say, how can you possibly get advice from somebody who already lost to Tyson? He can lay a glove on Tyson Fury. How on earth is he going to be able to guide OLEKSANDR USYK? Well, OLEKSANDR USYK gave his viewpoint on this situation. He said, "I've been talking to both of them, of course. Vladimir supports me with advice about the sport and the techniques, and Vitali supports me with advice about life and the sport too, of course. I listen to it carefully and I decide what to use. Me and my team determine the strategy." So he's saying here that he's not essentially going to be swayed necessarily. He's trying to absorb information. Now, in terms of this idea that Tyson Fury completely dealt with Vladimir and therefore Vladimir can't pass anything positive, anything valuable to USYK, I have to strongly disagree with this piece of interpretation. You see, sometimes you can learn a lot from what went wrong. You might be able to tell OLEKSANDR USYK, this is why I couldn't land a glove on him. I fell for this particular trick, or he's very good at doing X and Y. But later on in the fight, I realized that when he moves into this position, he's not quite as elusive. Or if I punch to this area, I could find the target more effectively. In other words, just because you lose to a guy doesn't mean you can't have picked up nuggets along the way. You know the phrase, those that can't teach, right? Well, sometimes you can teach someone else that can. A teacher can be valuable even if the teacher is incapable. And you know, just to show you that I'm very consistent on this particular point of view, although Tyson Fury completely played with Vladimir, I'm not disputing that at all, and although he completely battered Deontay Wilder in the second fight, and although he burst the eardrum of Malik Scott in a sparring session, something that Malik Scott would go on to admit, when Malik Scott was going to train Deontay Wilder, I did a video explaining that this was not a terrible choice necessarily, because there are certain things that Malik Scott can do that Deontay Wilder couldn't do, the way that he moves. But even if he was unable to do anything better than Deontay Wilder, it doesn't mean that the knowledge isn't there that he can then pass on to Deontay. So although Tyson Fury himself brought this up, how's this guy going to be able to teach you anything? Floyd Mayweather said this in the past as well about Oscar De La Hoya. How's he going to be able to give over any information that could guide someone to beating me when I beat Oscar? It doesn't really work like that. Are you going to tell me that there's any version of Cus D'Amato that could have beaten any version of some of the best wins that Mike Tyson had? Cus D'Amato wasn't a pro fighter. How about Angelo Dundee? He wasn't a pro fighter. Is there anything he could have done personally that would have been successful in a fight against someone like Joe Frazier or George Foreman? Of course not. But it doesn't mean he can't understand and analyze and drop little nuggets and tell Ali, listen, this is an area where he's weak. If we can do X, Y, and Z in this area, we can capitalize. So I've got no problem with Alexander Usyk talking to the Klitschkos, who of course are both going to go down as Hall of Fame heavyweights. And it doesn't mean that he'll get the win against Tyson Fury. Whatever they teach him, though, may very well be valuable. And if it's not, he may kick it to the curb and come up with his own strategy. But if he does take any of those nuggets on board, it can only be an advantage. They may not work. Fury might deal with him anyway, right? But what have you got to lose? So I see no problem with it. Just thought I'd give my little piece there when it came to this particular debate that's raging on. Now let's talk about Anthony Joshua as well. Long-time subscribers will know what a terrific heavyweight I think Anthony Joshua is. He's got a terrific set of skills. And while it's true that I've always rated Tyson Fury above Anthony Joshua, that doesn't mean that I don't think he's a fantastic heavyweight who can't possibly catch up or overtake some of the other elite guys. I'm always one of these people that believes all the best guys can beat each other on any given day if they get their tactics right. So whilst I've always had Tyson Fury as the number one, I've always raved highly about AJ. But what happens with me, I'm not the sort of person that overreacts to victories or defeats. When AJ was riding on the crest of a wave and you had Barry Hearn saying things like he's the best talent I've seen since Muhammad Ali, and everybody was overrating AJ, I was saying, no, you lot are exaggerating. I don't see that. There's great talent there for sure, but he's not quite at that point yet. By the same token, when he then loses to Andy Ruiz, which was an outcome I actually had a bet on at the time, because I understood that Andy Ruiz was a really dangerous fight for Anthony Joshua stylistically at the time, that version of Anthony Joshua. And then when he went on to lose to Alexander Usyk on 2 occasions, again, something that I predicted would be likely to happen if he was to be allowed to get the decision in the UK. Again, I don't overreact to that. And I say, no, he's not as now lowly as you guys rate him, a lot of you guys. I still think he's a world-class heavyweight. But he still needs to iron out a couple of things and improve on a couple of different issues. And he's got the world at his feet in that regard because he is a cash cow and he is so talented. And you know that he's got the ability to adapt. We've seen him already change styles. So when I see him out there going from trainer to trainer, it's worrying to me. Because when you were out there the first time after leaving Robert McCracken and you went to the US to look for various trainers and you decided to link up with Robert Garcia, I can understand why that didn't work. But then after that, aren't you going to look at the situation and say, well, I've already been window shopping out there for trainers. And yeah, it's true that Robert Garcia was my first choice, but maybe Derek James would have been my second choice, but I went for Robert for X, Y, and Z reasons. And now that that marriage didn't really work out, I know that Derek James is the guy I should have gone with. That would be the logical method of approaching it. Instead, he's still unsure and he's gone back to the US to meet up with Virgil Hunter and meet up with Derek James again. What is that all about? To me, this just smells of utter confusion.
I'm confused because, does a confused person get a resolution? I don't understand.
I don't understand either, mate. Trust me. And the thing is, Robert Garcia has actually come out and he's spoken about this. And he said, Anthony called me and told me what he was doing. And I understand, the way he sees things. And honestly, I wish him the best. Even if it was me again, I understand that they're trying to fight someone in the spring. Having to go to camp in England, it was very difficult for me because Jose Ramirez is fighting during that time. I've also got Bam Rodriguez. It's about getting him out of his comfort zone, though, and not being the boss and doing what he's told to do in a place where he's not comfortable. It doesn't matter who it is. When he comes back, I know they're going to pick him 2 or 3 easy fights, so it's going to make a trainer look good. But the difference is I went in there against Usyk, and we still did better than anyone expected. And the thing is, I had it on very good authority. I'm not going to burn a source here, but I had it on very good authority that Robert Garcia had been unhappy with AJ's decision not to go to the US earlier in the day. when it came down to the Usyk fight, he wanted to bring people to him. Now, a lot of fighters do that. Vitali and Vladimir Klitschko had bases, for instance, and they would bring trainers to them, sparring partners to them, and so on and so forth. But Robert Garcia, I know, wanted to get him out of the UK. He wanted to get him over to California, getting him training around these tough Mexicans who are going to set a high standard. And like I said, I had this on very good authority. He was unhappy with that. So straight off the bat, there's a different mindset between the two guys. AJ post-fight then spoke about overtraining during camp. So maybe their methods of working was different. Now, from the outside looking in, I have to say, to me, with the psychological issues it seems that Anthony Joshua's had, with the pressure he's under in the UK, it would have made sense, in my opinion, for him to up sticks, move to the United States, go and train out there in LA with Robert Garcia. That's from the outside looking in. However, it's important also to know that AJ is not necessarily wrong to do things his way. Sometimes a fighter will know himself better than anybody else can know him. Just to segue back to football, for instance, just to give you the example of another sport, Robin van Persie, who was a professional football player who suffered a lot with injuries, but when he was fit, he was world class, there's no doubt about it. When he was at Manchester United and David Moyes took over, those two actually clashed. And Robert van Persie would explain that it was over his training methods, because David Moyes is a real disciplinarian, a guy who likes to really push an athlete and get him to peak maximum fitness through repetitive hard work. And Robin van Persie would explain that actually I know my body. I know that I've had injuries. I know when I can push myself and when I can't. So I need to be allowed to do my own thing. So by the same token, if Anthony Joshua is feeling that he's overtraining and Robert Garcia is pushing him, maybe it's a case of Robert Garcia not being aware of the limitations a heavyweight has with his body, these sort of physical pressures that are on a heavyweight's body when he's trying to get fit for a fight. Then again, his stamina did seem a lot better in the fight against OLEKSANDR USYK the second time around. So maybe Robert Garcia's work did pay dividends, but Anthony Joshua just didn't see it that way. So who knows who was right and wrong? Whatever the case, they were not compatible. But by now, you should know who your second choice is going to be. Now, whether it's Virgil Hunter, who I believe can apply some calmness to Anthony Joshua in place of a crisis. He's going to have Andre Ward there as well. He would also almost be like a mentor alongside Virgil Hunter. We've seen him in the way he's spoken to the likes of Clarissa Shields. When he gives advice, you see that other guys stop and listen. There's a gravitas about Andre Ward when he speaks, perhaps because of what he's achieved. He's highly respected in the sport. Maybe as a guy that could advise AJ, who loves to absorb information, when you look at those two as a combination, you could imagine that being quite a powerful one for the psychology of Anthony Joshua. Then you've got Derek James, and now Derek James is proving himself to be one of the elite trainers in the sport. The work he's doing with most recently Frank Martin, but of course also Errol Spence and Jamel Charlo, there are certain subtleties that these guys do, the way they will often punch through shrugged shoulders. They use their shoulders a lot to create a shell while they're punching. They're very defensively astute, the way they explode out of the pocket, not just to enter to attack, but to exit the pocket to get into defensive areas. They'll poke and then pull out. Their inside game is absolutely superb, and they're able to keep you off balance while they work on the inside. And when Anthony Joshua did try to jump on OLEKSANDR USYK and he landed one or two effective shots, and Usyk himself said post-fight that he had been hurt by AJ. He admitted this. Despite all that, Usyk's defense was very, very good. Maybe with the help of Derek James, he can help him pick little holes in a guy's defense, get him off balance to be able to create openings to fight up close. The negative aspect of that is that his style might not be suited again to a heavyweight, because you look at all these guys, they're very active. Errol Spence, Jamel Charlo, they throw a lot of punches. So again, there are so many question marks about how you find the perfect fit. It's not easy, but whatever the case may be, you must commit to and trust the process. You can't keep doing these things of changing trainers, running over here, running over there, being unsure what to do. And this is significant because Eddie Hearn in a recent interview was saying that for them to go ahead with the Deontay Wilder fight, and they were saying the lines of communication were good, they need to get a new trainer in place who's going to give them the go-ahead in terms of the scheduling of Anthony Joshua's up-and-coming fights. So they're waiting for a guy that they're going to hire to give them the green light as to who they're going to fight. So AJ really needs to get a move on, commit, and stick with it. And he did say in an interview himself with GQ magazine that he's hoping to fight Deontay Wilder in 2023. So you haven't got that long. So for me, he needs to hurry up and make those moves. That's my take on AJ. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents, about everything that we've spoken about. Has this uncertainty with the trainers and the seeming confusion of Anthony Joshua changed your mind in any way as to how you would have predicted a fight between AJ and Deontay Wilder would go? Or has your opinion always been the same? Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. Which trainer should he pick? Don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.